Om Ajnanatimidandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Dhena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namah. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. 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 Swaraj, good to see you. And everyone else too. Welcome to ISKCON Silicon Valley. Nice to see you all here. We have the great fortune today that we're going to continue hearing from the Srimad Bhagavatam. And we're studying right now the pastimes of Dhruva Maharaj, who has gone off to the forest, although he's 5 years old. And he had left behind his father's kingdom. Uttanapada was his father's name. He had two mothers, one stepmother and one biological mother. His stepmother's name is Suruchi. Suruchi was the favored queen of the king, Uttanapada. And his real mother, his biological, is named Suniti. So at 5 years old, one day, Dhruva Maharaj attempted to sit on the lap of his father, the king, because his brother was also sitting on the lap of the king. But Suruchi protested and said, "You can't do that because you're not born from my womb." And the king didn't protest because he was beholden to the queen, Suruchi. Being a Kshatriya, Dhruva Maharaj became furious. It's the nature of a Kshatriya to have hot blood. And he ran out of that chamber and ran to the place where his mother lived, crying. Hot tears means angry. And when he came to his mother, he was followed by a number of the servants that were in the quarters of the king, who overheard the conversation, and they related what had happened. And Dhruva Maharaj wanted to know what his recourse would be. And his mother said, "I'm helpless." But in the course of her scolding Dhruva Maharaj, Suruchi had said, "The only way that you can rectify this situation is if you attain God's mercy and you take birth in my womb." So his mother, Suniti, said she was right about part of that, and that is that you do have to get God's mercy, because otherwise we're helpless in moving in this world. This is very instructive in the Srimad Bhagavatam, 7th canto, in the prayers of Prahlad Maharaj. Prahlad makes an astounding statement. Balasya neha sharanam pitarao nashingha nartasya chagana buddhanmati majato no taptasya tat pratividir yarihanja sheshas tavad vibo tanupitam twadupekshitanam. He says that, "O my Lord Nrsingadev," Vibho, he calls him, "O the greatest." A parent cannot save his or her child. A boat on water cannot save a drowning man. And medicine cannot save an ailing patient without the sanction of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Because if you go to the doctor and say, "I'm very ill, can you help me?" what will he say? Maybe. I'll do my best. Don't count on it. And I may kill you in the process.
Please sign here.
Please sign here. I went in for surgery about 5 years ago, and they made me sign about 6 times as they were wheeling me in. They said, sign here, sign here, sign here, sign here. What does that mean? Saying, if we kill you, you won't mind. You won't protest. And of course, we know the Titanic was a foolproof ship. It had been built so that it couldn't sink. And it sank on the maiden voyage. My great-grandfather was on that boat, but he got off before it sank because his wire transfer hadn't come through. Otherwise, I wouldn't be here speaking today, supposedly. And medicine and child, the parents can't save child. They do the best they can, but obviously parents want to protect their children, but what can they do without the sanction? I remember when I was visiting my parents, I spent a lot of time with them before they left. They were in their 90s before they left their bodies. And I was over at their house one Christmas when my parents were about 90 years old. And they were getting Christmas ornaments out of the attic. And my mother was climbing up this old ladder. And I said, "Tut, what are you doing? You can't do that." And she looked at me and said, "What do you think I've been doing for the last 90 years? Well, you weren't around." And I thought, life goes on. There are all kinds of living entities that survive all kinds of floods and heat waves and so forth, and others that die suddenly without any explanation. So it's all happening by God's mercy. And this is what Suniti was explaining to Dhruva Maharaj, that you won't have any hope of rectifying this situation. We're born in a certain way, with a certain kind of fate. What is that fate? It's not something so mysterious. It's actually momentum from our previous life. Krishna explains in the Bhagavad Gita, yang vapi smaran bhavam tajatyante kalevaram tam evaita konteya sada tad bhava bhavitaha. Whatever you remember, whatever is your feeling, your bhav at the time of death, that you'll attain without fail. And in the Srimad Bhagavatam, 1st canto, 5th chapter, Narada Muni explains how tasyaiva heta prayateta kovidona labhyate yad brahmatam uparyada. He said, we're wandering in this universe. Actually, we can wander from one universe to the next, from one creation to the next, still loitering and wandering. And he said that in the course of doing that, we're getting what we deserve from the material nature because of our past activities, and that isn't changing unless we change. And therefore, he said, don't try for adjusting your material situation, because there's only so much you can adjust it. You adjust it up. Krishna describes in the Bhagavad Gita, some people perform pious activities. That means they understand how the material world works. They perform some yajna, sacrifice for pious works, for some punya. Punya. They go up to the higher planetary systems where there's a longer duration of life and a more congenial atmosphere. But then Krishna says, Shinye punya martya lokam vishanti evam traya dharmam anuprapana gata gata kama kama labante. They use up that punya, and what happens? Fall back down again back to the earthly planet. There's a whole process for that. How the living entity comes back down and gets resituated in the middle planet, and then again has opportunity to degrade himself lower or elevate himself higher again. But up and down we go in the material world, and to no real consequence for the devotee who has attained the lotus feet of Krishna and considers devotional service to be the ultimate in life. The devotee doesn't care whether he is in heaven or hell. Narayana parah sarve nakutaschana bhibyati swarga pavarga narakeshu apituryana darshan. It's the same to him, because he sees the material world as a phantasmagoria. Please get the dictionary. You can look up phantasmagoria. And that the adjustment that's going on in the material world is for naught. Even the karmakandis, who know how to work the system and expertly arrange their situation, find themselves in awkward situations, like King Nriga, who was a great king, bygone ages, and he was a karmakandi. He knew certain yagyas to perform in order to elevate himself to a higher position. Partly that was from giving charity. He gave more cows, beautiful cows, that were just about to give birth to a calf, with gold-plated horns and hooves, decorated with jewels. As many stars there are in the sky and grains of sand there are on the beach, that's how many cows he gave in charity to qualified Brahmins, to rack up punya. And then one day, one of the cows wandered away from the herd that he had already donated to another Brahmin and wandered into the herd of a second Brahmin, and they got in a dispute, and then they accused King Nriga. And he became the victim of a mistake. And for that, his next life, he took birth as a lizard. Had some severe reaction to that. That's the problem with trying to adjust one's system manually in the material world without the help of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. One becomes subject to the reactions to mistakes that one makes. It's good, it's preaching going on, but it's a little distracting. You can close the door. How are we so far? Everyone all right? What was I saying? Punya. And adjustment in the material world, you can go up, you can go down, and so forth. No use in that, trying to adjust one's situation in the material world. So Suniti gave this instruction to Dhruva, and that was, try to find God. Dhruva wanted to know, where do I do that? Where did she tell him to go? Mountain View. Forest. So he went to Vrindavan, he went to Madhuvan, near the Jamuna River. And in the forest, on the way to the forest, he met his spiritual master, Narada Muni. Narada Muni intercepted his progress and asked him, where are you going? And he tested him. He said, why don't you go back? Just be equipoised. Treat people equally. Don't worry. And Dhruva Maharaj said, very good Brahminical instruction. I can't follow it. I'm too much affected by the lower modes. And off he went. And Narada said, okay, now I'll instruct you. There was a test. And then Narada gave him instruction in the process of performing devotional service. He taught him how to control his senses and worship the deity and meditate on the form of the Lord. This is recommended by Krishna where? That one should meditate on the form of the Lord. In the Gita, where does he say? Think of me. Manmana bhavamat bhakto. Krishna says, Manmana bhavamat bhakto. Just think of me. Now we can't think of something amorphous or formless. And where does Krishna say, in answer to Arjuna's question, which is better, thinking of something amorphous and formless, or thinking of my personal form? 12.2. Let's hear the verse.
Sri Bhagavan Vacha
Klesho dikartaras tesham
Avyakta saktachetasam avyakta hi gatir dukham dehavadbhir avapyate.
12.2. No. There it is. Right there in 12.5. So 12.5, Krishna says that it's very troublesome to try to think of an impersonal form. Better to think of my personal form. It's always troublesome. And it causes trouble in this life. It carries over to the next life, this impersonal idea of God. Whereas if one fixes one's mind on the personal form of the Lord after hearing the description of the Supreme Personality of Godhead through disciplic succession, which is the only way we can understand the personal form of God, through the descent of spiritual knowledge and mercy from a higher source. We can't speculate and understand it, because most people who speculate end up with an impersonal understanding. They eliminate the material world, which means eliminate variety, and they come to the conclusion that God must be impersonal. That's wrong. God is not impersonal. He's actually a person. And he says so in the Bhagavad Gita, that even the impersonal aspect is simply resting on me. It's one aspect of my existence. So he taught Dhruva Maharaj how to think of the Lord. He gave him a description of the Lord's features and what kinds of instruments he was holding in his hands. By the way, what items does the four-handed form of the Lord hold in his hand? In his hands. Shankha means conch shell. Then chakra, the wheel. And then gada means the club. Then padma, then the lotus. So he holds these four symbols. And what other descriptions can you give of the personality of the Lord? Srivatsa, he has a silver mark on his chest, which is where the goddess of fortune resides. What else? Lotus eyes. Yellow silken garments, yes. Marks on the bottom of his feet. Very good. Abdomen like a lotus flower, yes? Bluish color, like a dark rain cloud, right? So like ripples on his neck, yeah. Peacock feather on his crown, in his hair. So there are descriptions of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and one can meditate on these. They were given by Narada Muni. And then what else did Narada give besides this description to Dhruva Maharaj, which is very important? I'll give you a hint. It's something you can take with you wherever you go. Mantra. You have to have a mantra. Iti murtya abhidanena mantra murtim amurtikam. Narada Muni mentions in the 5th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita that the mantra gives the murti. The mantra gives the full form of the Lord. Yajate purusham. That the full manifestation of the Lord comes through the mantra. He says it's especially easy to understand and see the form of the Lord through the mantra. Mantra murtim amurtikam. So murti means form, right? Yeah. Correct? It also means difficulty. So mantra murtam amurtikam means by the mantra you see the form and you do it without difficulty. That's the easy way, the direct way to actually see the form of the Lord within your heart. So both the description is there of the Lord, and he instructed Dhruva Maharaj, did Narada, how to create a deity. And of course, Dhruva was going to the forest, so he had to make a deity out of earth. The Lord can appear in material elements because he's omniscient and omnipotent. And there's a certified process, which is mentioned in the Shastra, for worshiping the deity. And just as when you mail a letter, you put a stamp on it, you take it and you put it in a, not just any box, but a U.S. Postal Service box, certified by the government, and then your letter will go to the destination. There's a process. And in England, I found out that if you put the stamp, which has a picture of the Queen, upside down, it doesn't go. Because it's an offense to the Queen. We're a little less reverent over here. You could put Lincoln upside down or anybody else, and no one would blink an eye. They'll just send it right on. But in England, it's not like that. But there is a standard process in deity worship that one can learn. This is coming down through the Panchatric system. This is instructed by the Panchatric, means actually interesting, Pancharatra, 5 nights. When Brahma was sleeping. The demon came and stole the Vedas from his mind, and therefore he went back and heard from Hayagriva again the teachings of the Vedas, but he got succinct teachings, and part of those are the Pancharatric teachings. It comes down in the form of deity worship, through which a person in this world can connect very quickly to the Supreme Personality of Godhead through this deity worship. So we advocate both the mantra and the worship of the deity. Those two things are what Dhruva Maharaj received from his spiritual master Narada Muni. And now Dhruva goes to the forest, and he also controls his senses. And sense control is very important in spiritual life, because the senses have an agenda of their own. Correct? Or is it just me? The senses have their own agenda, they have their own food, and they act independently practically. So unless one has a game plan to control the senses and regulates the senses will drag us from here to where? Hell. Thank you very much. Correct. From here to hell. They'll take you to hell with no problem. They become engaged in a certain direction. They're very strong to bring back, especially if one doesn't regulate them in the beginning. They tend to develop muscle memory. This is mentioned in the Yoga Sutras, which say that as one lets the senses loose to do whatever they want, they open up to a whole new world of what they consider to be enjoyment. And then one may say, okay, no more. But then there's a cycle that comes around, and then when that cycle comes around, the senses say, let's do it again. And if you do it again, then that desire opens up more and more. And pretty soon it becomes so severe that it's very difficult to bring the senses back. This we call an addiction. Addiction means even the intelligence can't intervene anymore. In the beginning, if you use your intelligence and you have good association and you have a game plan, you can actually control the senses. And by controlling the senses, you can enjoy inner happiness. Krishna mentions this in the 5th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. But if you're accustomed to letting the senses roam and do whatever they want, and they get a taste for their objects, and they develop an attachment for them, it becomes a more and more pronounced attachment, and then after some time, you can't bring them back. Even the intelligence says, not a good idea, and the senses say, too bad, this is what I do. And you can't do much about it. It's very difficult to come back from some severe addictions. You can see some people struggle their whole life just to give up smoking or to give up some kind of intoxication. Smoking is a kind of intoxication. Or other kinds of things like texting while driving. I noticed such an addiction that I watch people that at the peril of their life, I almost went off the road watching somebody go off the road the other day because I thought, I saw this guy texting and I said, he's going to go off the road. And so I was watching his tires, and meanwhile I was going like this. It's bad for everybody, texting. Don't text while driving. But people can't help it. You got to keep looking at, pull it up, look in your text, and you can't, people sleep with their phone because they're afraid. Maharaj was mentioning this the other night. It's so pervading that it's an addiction. So one has to regulate the senses in the beginning, Krishna says, or as soon as one comes to the understanding that this is beneficial. Raga dvesha vimuktaistu vishayan indrayaishcharan atmavasher vadeyatma prasadam adhikashchati. By regulating the senses, raga dvesha vimuktaistu, if you become liberated from raga. Raga means this inordinate attachment to temporary things, also called this asat trishna. Asat means the temporary, things that won't last. You can't keep them anyway, but you develop a thirst for them. It's not sane. Raga dvesha, and dvesha means an aversion. So that's the opposite side of raga. I develop an attachment, and after some time, after indulging my senses and my mind in certain sense objects, then what happens? I become saturated and I say, I don't want it anymore, I give it up. People all the time, they become attached to something or somebody and they say, I love you, I love this, and then a couple of years later they say, I hate you and I hate this, and that's how everything ends up on Craigslist. Because people buy, I have to have that pair of shoes, and then they look at, what was I thinking? The mind goes round and round and changes. And that's not my style anymore. Every year a new style, mind changes again. That's why it's good. Pick a style, just stick with it your whole life if you can. You don't have to think about it. Steve Jobs did that. He just said, too much trouble thinking about it. I'll just wear a black turtleneck and jeans, and that's it. Then I'll have plenty of time to think about other things. Because how much time do people spend thinking about what's their new style? 90%. 90% of their time they think about what's my new style this year, how am I going to adjust, and so forth. Hare Krishna. So, raga dvesha vimuktaisthu vishayan indrayaishcharan. Vishayan indrayaishcharan. The vishayas means the senses, indrayaishcharan. Atma vasher vadeya atma prasadam adhigachati. If you learn to control the indriyas, and you can become free from this raga dvesha, then you can receive the complete mercy of the Lord. You can receive what?
Complete mercy of the Lord.
Correct. And from that, prasadam adhigachati, you get this complete mercy of the Lord from that system, then prasadi sarvatukhanam, you become free from all misery. So Dhruva Maharaj was controlling his senses. This is not recommended, the severe austerities that he took up. He was fasting and drinking only Jamuna water and taking leaves and grass, just eating leaves and grass. And then he started eliminating leaves and grass, then he was just taking water. Then he stopped taking water and he was just taking air. Then he stopped taking air, he was just controlling his breath and only breathing at intervals. But all the time he was fixing his mind in samadhi on the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So much so that he became one with the universal elements and assumed the weight of the universe. And he was able to, just by pushing his big toe, the planet would move. And the demigods in the higher planets were affected in the way that they were breathing. It's practically inconceivable, but this is the path of mystic yoga, and there's a way in which a person who has such focus is able to manipulate various elements. He wasn't doing it intentionally, but he had attained this heaviness of being because of his fixity in his meditation. The demigods felt inconvenienced, and they went to Lord Vishnu and said, something's going on here. And the Lord said, that's my devotee. He is performing austerities. At this point, Dhruva was standing on one leg. And it's interesting because Hiranyakashipu did similar austerity. But what different motivation they had. Dhruva Maharaj ended up with a completely different result than Hiranyakashipu. But both performed these austerities. In explaining the benefits of these austerities, Srila Prabhupada, in his commentary on this verse, has said that we shouldn't try to imitate, but we should follow in the footsteps of Dhruva Maharaj. Now let's have a discussion. How to follow in the footsteps of Dhruva Maharaj as far as austerities go. What are appropriate austerities for the year 2013, July 28? Is it 28 today? July 28, 2013, here in Mountain View, California. What are appropriate austerities that would be considered following in the footsteps of Dhruva Maharaj? Rajesh.
I'm going to keep my cell phone away.
Now that's practically on a level of not eating for like 6 weeks or something. Bravo! I love that answer. Okay, yes.
At least not in my bedroom, at least in the night after like 9 o'clock, something like that.
Fantastic. You know, Benjamin Franklin, who was a very progressive individual, had a system of overcoming bad habits. And he would list all his bad habits, and then he would pick one of them, and for a week he would battle with it. And say, I'm giving up these bad habits. Just as we have to-do lists, we should have not to-do lists also. Say what to eliminate. This is exciting and progressive life for the human being. You should have both lists, and you should be trying to improve. What is the not to do? What do I not do anymore? I don't engage the mind in criticizing. When the mind goes to criticizing other devotees, then I bring it back to Krishna consciousness, to the mantra, and I let it go. Just let that itching sensation go that I want to say, but he, but, no, you can't say it. You just let it go and see what happens. See if your heart remains pure. Yeah, leave the cell phone. Try that. If there's an addiction to looking over and over and over and over again, then try looking maybe 4 times a day. Dare I even say it? Is that even possible? 5 times, whatever it is, regulate. This is ragadvesha vimukhtaistu vishan indresha. What other austerities? July 28, 2013, Mountain View, California, following in the footsteps of Dhruva Maharaj from Madhuvan in his severe austerities. What should we add or subtract from our life in order to be progressive in spiritual life?
Eating too much prasadam.
What about it? We should or we shouldn't?
You shouldn't eat too much beyond the limits. Like I especially go easy on the sweet side of it, although I should not. But if it's prasadam, I'll eat it under the guise of like, hey, it's prasadam, that's it.
What's a verse that would substantiate that in the Bhagavad Gita? Good?
I don't know.
You're on the trail? Very good. You're even further on the trail. She's got the first pada.
Yuktahara viharasya yukta cheshtasya.
Got the first line. Okay, who wants to bring it home? Yuktahara viharasya yukta cheshtasya karmasu yukta swapnava bodhasya yogo bhavati dukkha. So Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, you should be yukta in your eating. This is an important thing. Don't eat too much. Don't eat too little also. It's also it's folly to eat too little. Because then, as explained in the 11th canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam, in an attempt to control the tongue, sometimes people fast inordinately. And then what happens? Krishna says this to it. The tongue comes back again and says, give me more! You starved me, now I'm going to eat 5 times as much. And so it's very difficult. You have to be careful. Yukta means you have to balance. It's a balancing program. Not too much, not too little. Sleeping also. You just stop sleeping, you die behind the wheel of your car if you don't sleep enough. You have to be careful. Not too much, not too little. You have to get what you need. And in the way you work, you have to be regulated so that you can go on working. The machinery of your body and mind has to be regulated in that way. Okay, so don't eat too much. Even in the name of prasadam, you shouldn't stuff yourself. Yes?
I will try to remember reciting the prasadam prayers when not in temple. When in temple I do, but outside I just don't remember.
That's a really good program. The prasadam prayer is so sweet, and it's something you can do. I notice when I'm very hungry, I start the prayer as I'm running towards the table. I don't have the enough strength to actually sit down and then say it with complete decorum, but I'll say it on the way up the stairs. Sarira Vijita, Nirkula hears me coming. It's like it's prasadam time. But that prayer is very sweet. We remember over and over again the Bhaktivinoda Thakur, the glory of taking prasadam, that it's one of the processes for advancing in spiritual life, that we're calling out for the help of Sri Sri Nitai and Gaur, glorifying Radha Krishna by taking their prasadam and so forth. Very nice. That's a good austerity. What else? We've got Mayapur and then Hansapriya all the way in the back.
Prabhuji, reading Srila Prabhupada books every day. Yeah.
This is it. One instruction Prabhupada personally gave me. He said, you must read my books. Lucky for me. And if you pick a number, this is a good way to do it. Pick a number. In this book, I have a little tag, and it has a number on it. Right now, the number is not accurate. It says 35, but it's actually 40. So I move this tag. I just started this new volume. So when I sit down tomorrow morning, I will move this 40 pages forward, this tag, and put it here. And then I can't move until I finish. And then I have something to target every day. And if I get on the plane, I make sure I have my book. And then I move my 40 pages forward, and then life can go on after that. But until I've had my infusion from the Srimad Bhagavatam, then plus you add in your one chapter of Bhagavad Gita. You should do your chapter of Gita a day. At least do that. One chapter a day, chant a chapter. At least Sanskrit or English, or Sanskrit and English. So 40 pages or whatever you can handle. And we have a little chart you can take home with you. I may even have them in my bag, a few I can pass out. It's called Be a Sage Page by Page. And on that chart it tells you how many pages a day you have to read of each of Prabhupada's books in order to complete them within various sequences of time. So if you read 41 pages a day of Srimad Bhagavatam, which will take you about 40 minutes to an hour a day, you'll finish the whole Bhagavatam in... Who said that? You said?
2 years.
1 year. You had it right. Let's give him a hand. What did he win? Let's see what he won. We have a lucky winner here today at ISV. Come on up and claim your prize. Give him a big hand. That's not a big hand, that's a little hand. You please pick. Very good. And wait, that's not all. We have more for you here for guessing the correct number. Please pick. Show the audience what you've won. Show them what you won. Give them a hand. Haribo! Good job. Also, I recommend that you carry, if you make your, whatever Shastra you're learning, you can use these Ziploc bags. Highly recommend Ziploc bags. They keep everything fresh. Of course, they're already fresh, but if it locks in even more freshness for the paper and so forth. And you can carry these with you. You can take what you need out of the Shastra, photocopy it, the things that you're working on, and make sure you have it handy. So whenever you get stranded somewhere, or just for the day, you have them in order so you can pull them out, and then you're ready to go. You carry them with you on your walk, or, wherever you go, have it all ready, lined up. So that's a good austerity. Get in the habit of reading Prabhupada's books every day. Some people, they swing the golf club a certain number of times. In Japan, golf and baseball, those are the two big sports. And every day I see they're practicing, hitting over and over again, see how far they can drive the golf ball. So we should feel like that. Abhyasa yoga yuktena, cetasa nanyagamina. Every day we should practice Bhagavad Gita. And one of the great violinists of the world said, if I don't practice one day, I notice it. If I don't practice 2 days, my teacher notices it. If I don't practice 3 days, everybody notices it. So you'll notice when you actually read and practice every day. Hansapriya, austerities for 2013, July 28th, Mountain View, California, following in the footsteps of Dhruva Maharaj. What's appropriate?
News fast.
A news fast.
So easy.
You don't like the news? Then go out and make some of your own. It's a better idea to make your own news than rather listen to what everybody else is doing. Because most of the news that people are reporting nowadays is that somebody made a mistake somewhere. Who wants to hear about people's mistakes over and over again? Go out and make your own news. News fast can just give you that extra time and clear the mind. Thank you very much. What else? Yes?
Look at the pictures of deities as much as you can in a day.
Look at the pictures of the deities as much as you can during the day. What a great idea. Everyone has a picture of the deity? Yeah? If not, who should we see? He just volunteered you to give pictures to everybody. Okay, see Shraddha afterwards. She'll give you a picture. What are the things?
Pictures on the phones.
Okay, put it on the phone. Is that what you do? And she sends me pictures all the time, even when I'm traveling. She said, here's your darshan for the day. Get a picture through the email. It's very nice. What are the things, what are the austerities for this age, particularly? Yes? When you do japa, Brian Peterson's saying, focus your mind on the
mantra.
On the mantra. Focus on the mantra.
I'm surprised personally how much my mind can wander. At the same time, I'm repeating it. And I'll stop and I'm going, wow, that was a novel I wrote here.
Nice. So just remember that you have to focus the mind. You have to concentrate, give attention to the mantra. This is an austerity that will have great effects. Yes. Very nice. Thank you.
Yesterday I was listening to Ramanand Sakha Prabhu, in which two of the qualities he's working on, one of it was, speak only, which is beneficial, and you have always talked about Mukha Prasad. And when I heard Ramanand Sakha Prabhu, I was thinking maybe I should also try. So I was thinking maybe from my role perspective and my nature, whether that will be good or not. So I'm contemplating, but I'm seriously thinking it's a good idea to follow that.
It's a good idea, and in circumstances, for instance, at your work or something like that, where you actually have to correct somebody, it's not out of the realm. It's not that we have to become artificially kind to people through our speech, but it really means to speak with their best interests in mind. So if you yell at somebody who's about to step off the roof, for instance, hey, watch out! That's just because you're speaking sharply or abruptly doesn't mean you're not giving kind speech. You're speaking in such a way that you want to save them from the situation. It's a nice point. And the whole genre of controlling the tongue and controlling the speech is a really good place to start. According to Shastra, Padma Purana, Atashi Krishna Namadi Nabhaved Grayamindriye Sevamukhi Jivado Swayameva Spuratyada. That verse says you can see God if you control your tongue. If you just control your tongue, you start your yoga practice by controlling the tongue, God will show Himself to you. That's how powerful it is. Atashi Krishna Namadi Nabhaved Grayamindriya. You can't reach Him with your senses. Where in the Brahma Samhita does it say that you cannot reach God through your senses or through... Go ahead, you've got it. Belt it out.
I don't know if I remember the whole thing, but Pantastu koti satavatsara sampragamyo vayo rathapi manaso muni pungavanam sopyasti yat prapadasimna vichintya tatve govindamadi purusham tamaham bhajam.
Fantastic. Very good. Okay, come on up and see what you won. We have another lucky winner here at ISV, and this is not bingo, folks. This is real. Okay. And that's not all. Could you read the card to them? Somebody give her a microphone.
It is a prescribed duty in temple worship that not only should one visit the temple to see the deity nicely decorated, but at the same time he should hear the recitation of Srimad Bhagavatam, Bhagavad Gita, or some similar literature which is regularly recited in the temple. It is the system in Vrindavan that in every temple there is a recitation of the Shastras. Srimad Bhagavatam 3.25.36 purport.
Haribo! Show them what you got. Very nice. Would you like to say anything about the verse? Pantastu koti? Anything that you could remember about that particular verse, maybe just say.
Yeah, you cannot... I don't remember the literal, but you cannot reach even with the speed of mind. Mind can travel so fast, but you cannot reach Him. But through bhakti, it's very easy to reach the Lord.
Even the Muni, thank you, very good. Muni Pungavanam, the best of the Munis, the best of the thinkers, at the speed of wind, at the speed of the mind, you'll still fall short of coming to see the personality of Godhead. Only if you develop this pure devotion, this bhakti. And it begins with the tongue. Atashri Krishna Namadi na bhavet graimit. Where else would you start? I mean, it's a practical matter, yoga. It's not something that's impractical. You can apply this every day by controlling the tongue. We already heard you can take prasadam. Only eat those things that are first offered. Jagdashishtashina shanto muchante sarvakil bishai. Bunjite te togam papam. Ye pachantyatmakarana. Shastra, Bhagavad Gita says, Krishna says, if you eat jagnashishta, it means those foods that have been offered first for sacrifice. Jagnashishta santo muchante sarvakilbishai. You become liberated from all sins. All your sins become cleared by that process. And if the opposite is true, he says, Jagnashishta santo muchante sarvakilbishai. Bunjite te tokam papam. Ye pachantyatmakarana. If you eat food which isn't offered first, then you're eating sin. You're taking it in your system and your consciousness becomes affected by it. So control the tongue by taking yagnashishta. Some yagya was done. Yagya means Krishna. It was offered first. There's consciousness involved. It was not just consumed like these geckos. You know the geckos? I watched them in Vrindavan. They're very smart. First of all, they're very expert. They can walk on a ceiling. They can walk across the ceiling and hold on with their feet. I don't know how they do that. It's a completely smooth surface, and they walk across it holding on little suction cups or something. But there's one that lives behind a picture frame right next to a light bulb. And all the insects come, and about every 10 seconds he comes out and grabs one of the little bugs, and there he is. He has his little niche. Every little jiva's got his niche in this world somewhere. And so, if he would just take a little time to say a few prayers before he eats his bugs, Sharira Vijajal, something little, then it becomes Jagnashishta. But he doesn't think like that. And so don't do that. Don't just cram it in your mouth. It's not Jagnashishta. Take time for Jagnashishta. That's yoga. That's how the yoga begins, with the tongue. Atashi Krishna nama nina bhaved grayamindriye. Sevonmukhi ijivado. Sevonmukhi. You can render service with your tongue. And then what else with the tongue? You can speak about Krishna. And I just read, I don't have the volume with me, but I marked it in the other volume. Prabhupada said, these two books, Bhagavatam and Bhagavad Gita, if you talk about these two books, he said, you can very easily go back to Godhead. Just by preaching these two books. Yeah, there's so many gems in Prabhupada's books. You can go through, I mark them constantly, and you just go through and look at them. You can live off these. You know, one statement like that. So dedicate your life to speaking about Bhagavatam and Bhagavad Gita. This is Sevonmukhi Jivado. You start with the tongue. This is real yoga. This is practical. What else? Yes, Gandharvika.
I really like the point that you mentioned earlier about memorizing the verses and carrying it around them, because the moment we make the decision to memorize the verse, the mind rebels so much. Like, it feels like such a heavy task. But I think eventually it will become natural. And the two other things that I wanted to share was, one is about the writing explicitly a gratitude journal, or appreciating someone explicitly every day, at least once. And another thing that I thought was filling in the gaps with hearing, or telling the mantra. So these two things I think I found to be really powerful.
Okay, three things there were. One was?
Memorizing verses.
Memorizing verses. It's very good exercise for the mind.
Gratitude or appreciation.
Gratitude, appreciating the service of other devotees and the qualities of other devotees.
And then filling in the gaps by hearing.
And fill in all the gaps with hearing. Nice, really good. Excellent. No applause? All right, come on, let's see what you won. I think we have another winner here. All right, give her the microphone. Let's see what she got.
Nama Chintamani Krishnas Chaitanya Rasa Vigraha Purnaha Shuddho Nitya Mukto Abhinnatvan Nama Namino. This is from Padma Purana. The holy name of Krishna is transcendently blissful. It bestows all spiritual benedictions, for it is Krishna himself, the reservoir of all pleasure. Krishna's name is complete and it is the form of all transcendental mellows. It is not a material name under any condition, and it is no less powerful than Krishna himself. Since Krishna's name is not contained by the material qualities, there is no question of its being involved with Maya. Krishna's name is always liberated and spiritual. It is never conditioned by the laws of material nature. This is because the name of Krishna and Krishna himself are identical. Om Tat Sat.
Bravo!
Gauranga.
Jai Gauranga! Okay, everyone please raise your hands in the air as high as you can and yell out Gauranga. 1, 2, 3. And the number to text in today, if you have questions, comments, 650-245-7018. That's 650-245-7018. Our operators are standing by to take your calls right now. Shraddha, who's online?
Krishna Prabhu, this is Jonathan Prabhu, and he says aloha, and he says in ILA 1977, during Srimad Bhagavatam class, a few weeks after Gaur Purnima GBC meetings, Sat Swarup Das was reiterating Prabhupada's resolutions from that meeting. First, instruction is all disciples must attend morning and evening classes, and beyond that to read the 4 books, Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam, Chaitanya Charitamrita, and Nectar of Devotion on your own 2 hours a day. So
there you have it. Let's hear it for Jonathan. Jonathan, where's my camera here? We've got something for you here. That was beautiful. Thank you very much. Aloha.
Jonathan Prabhu has been ordering books. So far, he has ordered 4 Srimad Bhagavatam and 2 Chaitanya Charitamrita sets in the last.
Let's hear it for Jonathan. Aloha indeed. Aloha means the breath of God. Aloha. Okay, let's... any more texts coming in? Varsha, yes.
Hare Krishna, Guru Maharaj. I feel like Dhruv Maharaj, if somebody blasphemes you, you don't feel bad. Like his mother, she told him, you cannot sit in your father's lap. He felt bad. And another thing, he went and spoke to his mother, and his mother instructed him that you can get Krishna only the way if you go to forest and meditate. And on the way, he met his guru, and he meditated and could go back to Godhead. So from this, I learned that one thing, if somebody blasphemes you, don't feel bad. And another thing, listen to the instructions of your elders. They will surely take you to the right destination.
Thank you very much. Okay. Provided the elders are Krishna conscious. Otherwise, we have the case of Raghunath Das Goswami, whose elders told him, don't go join Lord Chaitanya. Even though they were even devotees of a certain state, at a certain stage of development, they said, don't go, don't leave, you have to stay here and try to enjoy as much as possible. But he arranged to leave anyway. So at a certain point, if there are elders that do not give the right instruction, we're not obligated. Devarshi bhutapna nirnam pitranam na kinkarau nayam rani charajan sarvatmanaya sharanam sharanyam gato mukundam parihritakartam. One who's Sarvatmanaya Sharanam Sharanyam. They're completely surrendered to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Is not obligated to the forefathers. In other words, even there are various kinds of ceremonies and ways in which we must follow certain kinds of worldly authorities. If our track in life is complete surrender to the Lord and their instructions are contrary to that, then we're not obligated to follow. However, there is a way in which there's just some nuance to that. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur would encourage his followers to go for certain kinds of worldly mundane rituals if it would upset the family too much, if they didn't participate. Of course, when it came to, there was one brahmachari, and he knew that his mother was leaving the world, and he wanted to remain brahmachari for life. And he knew if he went to see his dying mother, her last wish was that he should get married. So he hid and didn't go because he didn't want to have to disobey her last instruction. So there are some interesting conflicts that we may have with the instructions of our elders and our march towards the personality of Godhead and so forth, and we have to discern which ones are beneficial, which are favorable. Anukulyasya, sankalpa, pratikulyasya varjana. The surrender process means to be able to discern and act on those things that are favorable and those things, and reject things that are unfavorable to devotional service. Now I'm going to read some of the purports, if I may. How are we doing for time? We usually go till 6, 7, whatever. Okay. Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Dina Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. This chapter 9, Dhruva Maharaj returns home. So we've come to this point where Dhruva, I narrated some of the story. Dhruva's in the forest and he's meditating on the Supreme Personality of Godhead so intensely that he's choked up the breathing process of the universe because of his intensity. The great sage Maitreya told Vidura, when the demigods were thus reassured by the personality of Godhead, they were freed from all fears, and after offering their obeisances, they returned to their heavenly planets. Then the Lord, who is non-different from the Sahasrashirsha incarnation, got on the back of Garuda, who carried him to the Madhuvan forest to see his servant Dhruva. Purport: the word Sahasrashirsha refers to the personality of Godhead known as Garbhadakshayi Vishnu. Although the Lord appeared as Shirdakshayi Vishnu, he has been described here as Sahasrashirsha Vishnu because he is non-different from Garbhadakshayi Vishnu. According to Srila Sanatana Goswami in his Bhagavatamrita, the Sahasrashirsha personality of Godhead who appeared at the time was the incarnation known as Prishnigarbha. He created the planet known as Dhruvaloka for the habitation of Dhruva Maharaj. Text number 2. The form of the Lord, which was brilliant like lightning, and in which Dhruva Maharaj in his mature yoga process was fully absorbed in meditation, all of a sudden disappeared. Thus Dhruva was perturbed and his meditation broke. But as soon as he opened his eyes, he saw the Supreme Personality of Godhead personally present, just as he had been seeing the Lord in his heart. Purport: because of his mature position in yogic meditation, Dhruva Maharaj was constantly observing the form of the personality of Godhead within his heart. But all of a sudden, when the Supreme Personality of Godhead disappeared from his heart, he thought that he had lost him. Dhruva Maharaj was perturbed, but upon opening his eyes and breaking his meditation, he saw the same form of the Lord before him. In the Brahma Samhita 538, it is said, now this verse has to do with how you can see the personality of God if your eyes are smeared with the salve of love. There's extra points for synchronicity on this one. Vilochanena santaksa deva hridayeshu vilokayanti yam shama sundaram achintya gunaswarupam govindamari purusham tamaham bhajami. I noticed that all the devotees who come to the Saturday morning program at 7:30 a.m. on Saturday know these verses because we recite them every Saturday. And we have been for practically a decade now, I think, right? So, Premanjana Chudita Bhakti Vilochanena Santak Sadaiva Hridayeshu Vilokayanti Yam Shyama Sundaram Achintya Gunaswarupam Govindamari Purusham Tamaham Bhajami. This is one of the great verses uttered by Lord Brahma in his revelation of the spiritual world. And he says, Prema Anjana Chudita. There's this anjana, which means this kind of ointment that you can apply on your eyes. He's saying poetically, Premanjana Chudita Bhakti Vilochanena. And when you apply this ointment of what? Prema. Very expensive. You can't get it even in Chandichok. You have to get it from a pure devotee. And you get that ointment, if you smear your eyes with that ointment, then you can see Shyamashundar everywhere. Yam Shyama Sundaram Achintya Gunaswarupam. He has an inconceivable form, and you can see him within your heart, always, constantly, and within everything else. If your eyes are smeared with the salve of love, prema. Premanjana Chudita Bhakti Vilochanena. So this is the goal of life, to develop this love for Krishna. Prema Pumarto Mahan. There are many great, good things to attain in life, but there's only one great thing, and that's prema. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu declared that this is the ultimate goal of life, beyond dharma, artha, karma, kama, and moksha. This is the fifth goal of life, to attain this pure love for God. Barely anybody is engaged in doing that. Most people are engaged in trying to maintain the status quo in the material world. Very few people interested in spiritual life. Where does Krishna say that in the Bhagavad Gita? Which chapters does it come in? Preet Kishori's got it. Give her the microphone. She'll nail it. The verse in which Krishna says, out of many, many people, out of millions of people, go ahead.
So is this Bhagavad Gita 7.3? Manushyanam sahasreshu kaschit yatati siddhaye yatatam siddhanam kaschin mam veti tatvataha.
Translation.
So among millions of men, hardly a few try to achieve perfection, and of those who have achieved perfection, hardly one knows me in truth.
All right, come on up here, see what you've won. Another winner here. Give her the microphone, let's see what she got.
Nectar of Instruction, Shloka 5. Krishneti yasya giritam manasadriyeta dikshasti chet pranatibhischa bhajantamisham shushrushraya bhajana vigyam ananyamanya nindadishunya hridam ipsita sangalabdhya. One should mentally honor the devotee who chants the holy name of Lord Krishna. One should offer humble obeisances to the devotee who has undergone spiritual initiation, Diksha, and is engaged in worshipping the deity. And one should associate with the faith and faithfully serve that pure devotee who is advanced in undeviated devotional service and whose heart is completely devoid of the propensity to criticize others.
Die. Prema Anjana. You have to get this Anjana for your eyes. Prema Anjana. Premanjana Chudita Bhakti Vilochanena. A saintly person who has developed love of Godhead by devotional service always sees the Lord's transcendental form of Shamasundar. This Shamasundar form of the Lord within the heart of a devotee is not imaginary. When a devotee becomes mature in his prosecution of devotional service, he sees face to face the same Shamasundar he has thought of during the entire course of his devotional service. Since the Supreme Lord is absolute, the form within the heart of the devotee, the form in the temple, and the original form in Vaikuntha, Vrindavan Dham, are all the same. They are non-different from one another. Srivatsa, can you get some kartals, please? You want to play harmonium? Now, what is the process for attaining prema? Chanting, how can you prove that? Can you prove it from Shastra? That just by chanting one can attain perfection. Who can prove? Give her the microphone, she'll prove it. Start it off. And if you can't, then our pundit just walked in, so he'll help us out. Some verses that explain how the perfection of life is achieved in this age by chanting the holy names. Give us a verse.
The one verse that I could think of was how the different stages of devotion ends up in prema, and it's possible by chanting the holy names of Krishna.
What is that verse? Srivatsa knows it. No, from anywhere. It's got to be a bona fide shastra. It can't be from the Srivatsa Samhita.
I heard, I'll first say the Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu Smaranam, Padasevanam, Archanam, Vandanam, Dasyam, Saksam, Sakyam, Atmani, Vedanam. But then I also heard a lecture from Radhanath Swami, and he told, somebody asked Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, what is the most important form of devotional service? And he told Kirtanam. So, if Kirtanam is chanting of the holy names, and Kirtanam is the most important form of devotional service, then won't that be the one that will achieve
That'll help.
prema?
Give him a hand. You can claim your prize after the kirtan. Okay, more verses that establish the chanting of the holy name is the means for perfection in this age. They should just be flying out of here like, come on. Okay, go ahead, Mukaravind. Very good.
It is on the 12th canto, when Krishna Varna Tisa Krishna Sangopangastra Parsadam Yagye Sankirtana Praek Yajanti hi Sumedesha. So it is mentioned like those who are intelligent in this age of Kali worship the Lord with who came with his Parsad Sangopangastra Parsadam Sang, his associate, who worship the golden complexion Lord with all his associates, and they worship the Lord by chanting the holy name.
Very good. Another one.
Honestly, I didn't know anything. I just opened a page and it turned up in something like that.
Hey, it's better to be lucky than to be good.
So this is from Srimad Bhagavatam 11:240, Shloka book, page 265. Evam vratah svapriya nama kirtya jata nurago druta chitta uchchay hasatyatho roditi roti gayati unmadavan nrityati loka bahaya. Read the translation. By chanting the holy name of the Supreme Lord, one comes to the stage of the love of Godhead. Then the devotee is fixed in his vow as an eternal servant of the Lord, and he gradually becomes very much attached to a particular name and form of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. As his heart melts with ecstatic love, he laughs very loudly or cries or shouts. Sometimes he sings and dances like a madman, for he is indifferent to public opinion.
You're not lucky. You're tuned into the super soul. That was perfect. Very good. And there's one coming in over to text. Oh, you have it on your device. Go ahead.
So this was from Srimad Bhagavatam 333.7. Aho pat swapachoto gariyan yajivagre vartate nama tubhyam te pustapaste jibavu sashnurarya brahmanuchu nama grinanti yete. And the translation is, oh, how glorious are they whose tongues are chanting your holy name. Even if born in the families of dog eaters, such persons are worshipable. Persons who chant the holy name of your Lordship must have executed all kinds of austerities and fire sacrifices and achieved all the good names of the Aryans. To be chanting the holy name of your Lordship, they must have bathed in the holy places of pilgrimages, studied the Vedas, and fulfilled everything required.
Nice verse. Bravo. Okay, Bali, and then Hari Sankirtan. Then we're going to do Kirtan, and then Srivatsa will.
Actually, there are 3 slokas from Chaitanya Charitamrita. Here it says, Nitya Siddha Krishna Prema Sadhya Kabunaya Sravanadi Suddha Chitte Karahe Udaya. Pure love for Krishna is eternally established in the hearts of living entities. It is not something to be gained from another source. When the heart is purified by hearing and chanting, the living entity naturally awakens. And one more. Sakala sadhana shrestha ei pancha anga Krishna prema janmaya ei panchira alpa sangha. These 5 limbs of devotional service are the best of all. Even a slight performance of these 5 awakens love for Krishna. Last one. Abhideya nama bhakti prema prayojana purushartha siromani prema mahadhana. Devotional service or sense activity for the satisfaction of the Lord is called abhideya because it can develop one's original love of Godhead, which is the goal of life. This goal is the living entity's topmost interest and greatest wealth. Thus one attains the platform of transcendental loving service unto the Lord. Hare Krishna.
Bravo. Hari Sankirtan.
This is from Chaitanya Charitamrita Madhya Leela 15:107. Eka Krishna name kare sarva papashaya Navavida bhakti purna nama haite haya. Simply by chanting the holy name of Krishna once, a person is relieved from all the reactions of a sinful life. One can complete the 9 processes of devotional service simply by chanting the holy name.
Bravo. Excellent. Mayapur's really, Damodar really wants to jump in.
No, that's it. Again, it just opened up. I just Brahad Vishnu Purana Namno hi yavati shakti papa nirharte hare tavat kartum na shaknoti patakam pataki naraha. Translation: simply by chanting one holy name of Hari, a sinful man who can counteract the reactions to more sins than he is able to commit. Just one name of Hari.
Bravo, Haribo, Sadhu, Sadhu. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Preshtaya Bhutale Sri Mate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Give me the key you want to play. You care what key it's in? Play your tune. Whatever tune. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram, Hare Hare. Govinda Jaya Jaya, Gopala Jaya Jaya. Govinda Jaya Jaya, Gopala Jaya Jaya. Radha Ramana Hari Govinda Jaya Jaya. Radha Ramana Hari Govinda Jaya Jaya. Govinda Jaya Jaya, Gopala Jaya Jaya. Govinda Jaya Jaya, Gopala Jaya Jaya. Radha Ramana Hari Govinda Jaya Jaya. Radha Ramana Hari Govinda Jaya Jaya. Nitai Gaur Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Nitai Gaur Hari Bol. Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada. Go Premanande. Let's hear it for Priya Kishorik on harmonium. Shiva Tamesh on the kartals. For the Hare Krishna singers. A little more for the Hare Krishna singers. Nitai Gaura Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Nitai Gaura Hari Bol. So things aren't what they seem. Don't fall for the illusory energy of the Lord, because it's a fake out. Even the devas get bewildered by this external feature of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. It's very difficult to overcome the illusory energy of the Lord. In the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, Daivahi esha gunamayi mama maya duratyaya. Mameva ye prapadyante mayametam tarantite. Impossible to overcome this material nature. It's the divine energy of the Lord, illusory energy. Even great sages, yogis, can't overcome it. But if one surrenders to Krishna, he says, you can easily overcome it. The process for surrendering to Krishna in this age of Kali Yuga, 2013, July 28th, here in Mountain View, California, is to chant Hare Krishna. You have to chant Hare Krishna a lot. Because Maya has very strong influence in this age. Therefore, chant in a regulated way, take shelter of the chanting of Hare Krishna and practice it at home. If you can develop a home practice, you'll become as strong as the Himalaya mountain in your devotional service. If you can practice this behind closed doors whenever no one else is pushing you or watching you, and you can actually keep your integrity and keep your mind fixed on the holy name and chant in a regulated way, follow the regulated principles, you'll become strong as the Himalaya mountains in devotional service. And this is very much needed because now we have the opportunity. Lord Chaitanya has opened up the door for everybody in the Kali Yuga to step through, go back home, back to Godhead. And we have to at least take advantage of the facility that He's provided us. At least take advantage of that as much as possible. So this International Society for Krishna Consciousness here in Mountain View is specifically dedicated to providing that opportunity to everybody, not just for those who come here to learn more and more about the details, how to practice, to get good association, to take prasadam, the Jagdashishta, but then also to go out from door to door. This is Lord Nityananda's work, to give out the Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam to those who are sitting in their homes waiting for Lord Chaitanya and Lord Nityananda to come dancing down the street and say, let's go, time to go. No more, nothing more to see here in this material world. It's all been done and more. You come along with us. We'll go back to home, back to Godhead. So we thank everyone for coming here tonight to this program on Sunday. There's a lot of other places you can be, but you came here to the Hare Krishna Temple in Mountain View. We thank you very much.
Nachari Armarman, Nachari Armarman, Nachari Armarman, Nachari Armarman, hey, Nachari Armarman, Nachari Armarman, Nachari Armarman, Nachari Armarman.